Hello guys, my name is Michael. Now it is time, finally it is time to work with our GTK adjustment, because we were talking about it so much, and we were learning how we create it and how and where we can use it. Now it is time to go there, to that place where we can actually use it. In the last video we were talking about GtkSpinButton, which we were creating it basically with a range, and then we were setting some, or we were applying some properties, and we were changing some values through different functions. And now it is time for us to move on to our GtkSpinButton new. So let's see where's the function and what this function does. And we have it right here. It says it is a function which creates a new GtkSpinButton. So this means returns a widget, takes 3 parameters, and says creates a new GtkSpinButton. Okay, now the first parameter is our adjustment. So we need to have one so that we can work with. The second one is our climb rate. As you know, specifies by how much the rate of the change in the value will actuate if you continue to hold down and up, hold down an up down button or arrow key, and of course our digits. How many decimal points do we need? Okay, so that being said, let's call this function. We already created our SpinButton here, so we just need to call it SpinButton. We are pointing to our function, and here it is our adjustment. We are going to create it in one moment. Just let me pass some values at the beginning. So GTK adjustment, and then those values, which will be, I know, 1.0 just for, and of course let's create 2 digits. Of course, if I try to copy another program, you already noticed that our adjustment it's missing together. Okay, now the first error was because I said buttons. Okay, so as you can see, adjustment undeclared. So let's create it. GTK adjustment and adjustment. Now that we have it, let's create adjustment, and let's say adjustment. It will be pointed to GTK adjustment new. And as you already know, we have values here. The first one is the main value, which I'm going to set to 0. The low I will set it also to 0. The upper I will set it to 100. The step increment I will set it to 1. And the page increment I will set it to 10. And the size, page size, which we are not going to use it, I will set it to 0, of course. Now that our adjustment is created, we are passing it here, and then we create our climb rate, and then we set those digits to 2. Now we can add it. GTK container add. So GTK container, here's our window, and then of course our SpinButton, and finally we can compile it and run it and see what happens. Of course we have we always have a adjustment here. Here we have one n too much. Okay, we have another one n too much. We always have something too much. Okay, I compile it and run it again, and now as you can see, same story here with our this beautiful big size. G object set our spin button, we are going to set its margin to, I don't know, 50, and then null. Let's compile it and run it, and looks better, but if probably we set to 150 will be much better, so that we see it better here. Okay, now here is our spin button, which was created with adjustment, which means now we can increment into 1. If we hit page up and page down, of course we are going to increment to 10, 20, 30, 40 and so on. I go back. If I press right click, jumps to 100. If I press it, jumps back to 0. Of course the same thing happens if I press the middle button, the scroll jumps 10 and so on. Okay, so that being said, basically we are creating our spin button. We know that by creating the spin button we need an adjustment. We are creating an adjustment, we pass it at its first parameter, and then we let it to do the job. Now let's move to the next function. The next function is our GTKSpinButton configure. What this means? Well, I think you already know this. This function, let's go and see what this function does. Where's the function? It's the first one here, and says it's a function which returns voids and takes 4 parameters and says change the properties of an existing spin button, an existing one. Okay, remember we need to create one so that it exists. Okay, the adjustment, claim rate and number of decimal places are updated accordingly. So this means according to what we are passing here. Our spin button, our adjustment, to display the spin button existing adjustment or null, to leave it correct adjustment unchanged, claim rate and digit. So let's start with null. Okay, so the first one is our spin button set. So we need our GTK spin button. Okay, the second is adjustment, which is null. The third one is the claim rate. I will set it to 0, and the last one, it will be our digits, which I will set it this time to 5. Okay, now I will run the program, and as you can see, the changes are here. We have those 5 digits and so on. Okay, now basically about the adjustment, it is something like if you are creating a new adjustment, let's call it adjustment 2. Okay, and this new adjustment, we are setting it now to its value to 50, the lower to 10, the upper to 90, step increment to 2, and the page increment to 5. So basically now we are creating a new adjustment. Because we have it, we are going to pass it here where we were passing at the beginning the null. But now when I compile and run the program, everything is changed. This means we have something new. You see, we have another 50. Okay, let me drop those digits, put them to 0 because we don't need it. Okay, so now basically what the heck? Not there, spin button new, which will be our digits. I mean, what the heck? I said 0. Why? Configure. We said, okay, sorry, my bad. To let it 0 because we changed the adjustment, and we said also 5. Okay, now when I run the program, as you can see, we have our 50. We go with 2 down and 2 up. When I hit the page up and page down, goes to with 5. You see, 31, 36, 41, 46, and so on. And of course, the last things which we already know. Right click goes to 1. Right click goes to 100. Left click goes to 88, and so on. Okay, so That being said, this is the way how you create your new configurer. Let me put better tool here. How you configure your already created SpinButton. So basically the function GTK-SpinButton configure allows you to do two things. The first one is by passing null we can change the last two parameters, and by passing an adjustment, which means we can create a completely newly adjustment, and then work by changing for one adjustment to another one based on your needs. You can say if whatever, then call this function with adjustment 1, if whatever, call this function which is with adjustment 2, else call this function with adjustment 3 or whatever. So this is basically something which you can work with, and this is an example which you can use. Now let's see the last one, which is GTK-SpinButton set adjustment. Okay, let's see what this function does. We already know, but the name says everything. But let's see. GTK button get set adjustment, and says replace the adjustment associated with the spin button. Okay, so this is basically not something which you can update. It is something which you can completely change it. But just remember, this function only replace the adjustment. So this means basically between this function and this function is that with the configure function you can and you do clean break and digits also changing or setting. So if you don't want to set your spin button with new clean break and digit new values, then you drop this function and you just call this function, which now does the same thing like button configure, but without changing the clean break and the adjustment, which basically, oh, what I'm doing here, it needs an adjustment. After that I wanted to compile it without passing the adjustment. I think this one we need a cast tool. Yeah, I'm right. So this means the second parameter will be casted to GTK adjustment so that it works. Okay, and now that we have it, we are going to pass our second adjustment which we're creating. I'll compile and run the program now, and of course our button updates now to our new adjustment the way we've said that it needs to be created or adjusted. Now let's see what did we learn today. Let's see what kind of new things we saw today. We saw now another way of creating a spin button, an empty spin button, which then this button were created with an adjustment. This adjustment could be 0, 0, all over 0, and then after we decide that this button, this adjustment which we are creating, it needs to have some values, then we learn that we have two functions. Let me swap these two things because it's better than, which is the first one. It is a function which clearly shows us that let us to add a new adjustment to our button. This means if we don't have an adjustment, then we just create it. If we have it, we change it. And the last thing, if we don't want to change only the adjustment, but we want to change also the clean break and digits, then the next function, which is here, it is, so basically if we are going to use here 0 0, you see. So we are creating an adjustment with 0, we are creating a button which has also zeros, and later if you want to make those changes, then there it is. GTK-SpinButton configure, let us our spin button to set it an adjustment, and that adjustment which we are setting to it, it is also with two parameters together, the climb rate and digits. And of course here are the increments and value and digits, which range things which you can set them once that you create this button. This function you call them, and then you can set your adjustment if you want to. If not, for example, let's set the value. As you already know, our value is 250, but if I want to change it to something new, then I would say GTK-SpinButton set value, and needs our button which is here, and then if we are going to pass the new value of, like, I don't know, 75 for example, then of course this we have a winner which is 75, you see. Okay, that being said, I think it's enough for today. I think we learned a lot of information about how we are creating our GTK spin button, and which kind of possible ways there are for us. We saw that we can create in the simple manner by calling only that button new with range, or we can create it with a complicated one, which is also easier once that you understand and once that you followed also my last tutorial. And that being said, creating a new button with an adjustment. It's your decision which one from them you need. You need with range, you need with adjustment. Anyway, one or both, they are both easy to use, and you can use them in your future application which you are going to create. So that being said, I think I'm done now. I think it's enough for today. Until next time, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, share with your friends and neighbors, and until next time, see you guys.